Howdy folks, Spencer here, and a short time ago the Last Stand bundle featuring the legendary Negh'var, Nebula, and Dhelan were revealed on a dev stream. In this video I'll be recapping what was shown and giving you my thoughts on the bundle so far. As always, chapters to each section are listed below. The bundle will be going live next week on PC, on November 11th I believe. There's no word yet though if console's going to be getting it at the same time. They didn't have any pricing information to share on the stream today, but being legendary ships, you of course can't buy them standalone. You have to buy the entire bundle to get the ships. Now this is the first 3-ship legendary bundle, so my guess is that we're looking at a base cost around 15,000 Zen, with an introductory 25% sale that would take it down to around 11k Zen at launch. Again, that's just a guess. We'll find out for sure next week when they also reveal the non-ship contents of the bundle. And before I dive into the first ship, just a reminder that legendary ships do not come with a new console. They come with all the skins, traits, consoles, and other accessories from versions of the ship released prior to the legendary version. However, they do get a new starship trait at Tier 6 Mastery that is instantly available account-wide upon the ship being leveled up on a single character. First up is the legendary Negh'var Intel Dreadnought Cruiser. We have a few high-res pics of this from pundits over on the official Stowe Discord, but for the full kit bash and Vanity Shield coverage, I imagine Mac and Endeavor will have their videos out shortly after these drop next week. And diving into the stats, the legendary Negh'var has a 5-3 weapon setup with the ability to run dual cannons. It has 4 device slots, console-wise, 5-inch, 3-psi, 3-tac. It also has a built-in enhanced battle cloak, and it does have a hangar bay featuring the new Chancellor's Chariot pets. Now, the pets that we were shown on stream are just the rare quality version, so you can see them in action here. If I skip ahead, you can see them shooting some disruptor cannons there. So the rare version here has 2 disruptor cannons, a disruptor turret, the disruptor cascade ability, which is just a miniature version of the trait that this ship comes with, and then they have access to Cannon Rapid Fire 1. These are heavy fighters with a max of 4 deployed per bay at a time. Performance-wise, we'll have to see how these pan out, but with no debuff listed here, these are not a contender to replace your Type 7s. For the Bridge Officer layout, it's a direct copy of the legendary Galaxy Dreadnought. Commander Inge with Intel, Lieutenant Commander Universal with Command, Lieutenant Commander TAC, Lieutenant Science, and Ensign Universal. So any build out there that you can find for the legendary Galaxy Dread can be directly copied over to this ship. The Intel seat nets you full access to Override Subsystem Safeties 3, Surgical Strikes 3, along with all of the uncon triggers that Intel has to offer. Now, for the Lieutenant Commander command, that means you can do Concentrate Firepower 3 for torps, Suppression Barrage 1 for tanking, or Call Emergency Artillery 1 for a little bit of extra damage. Those are the 3 command abilities that have any relevance, but using any of them will prevent you from using a Gravity Well 1. That means most folks will just ignore the command seating so that they can fit a Grav Well on. And while at first this looks like a flexible layout for torps or engine weapons, or for tanking, the reality is the more you look at it, the more you realize that there are flaws for torp or tank setups on this ship. And just to be clear, I'm not saying that you can't do a tank or torp setup on this, just that this is a much less capable platform for those sorts of playstyles. And for the Starship trait, this is Destabilizing Disruptor Enhancer. This is up for 30 seconds upon you hitting an Inge, Command, or Intel Bridge Officer ability, and it then has a 30-second recharge time, so 50% uptime. While active, every half second while doing energy damage, your weapons apply a disruptor damage over time effect to the foe's hit that will last for 10 seconds, and it appears to cap at 15 stacks per foe that you hit. Each new stack will then refresh the duration. Upon hitting 15 stacks on a target, the dot will expire and it will deal radiation damage in a 1.25 kilometer sphere around the target, damaging up to 5 foes. And it has a really nice visual effect there that you can see over at the right. The main target will then become immune to more stacks of the trait for 5 seconds after it has hit the 15 stacks and done that explosion. This trait sounds interesting, but I do have some concerns about that uptime. I'm really worried about 30 seconds up, 30 seconds down. When you look at Complex Plasma Fire, that is able to be up 100% of the time, so if this is something that doesn't perform at the same level as Complex and then is made even worse by that uptime, that's going to significantly diminish the impact of this trait. Now, shifting over to the legendary Nebula Temporal Operative Science Spearhead, this brings us the Melbourne skin for the Nebula that we saw introduced into the game with the Battle of Wolf 359 Task Force Operation. Jumping into the stats, prior to this reveal we knew that if the legendary Nebula was going to be a science ship, then it was going to be very difficult for it to match or beat the existing Terran Monitor variant of the Nebula. Sadly, it has lived up to that expectation, being a science spearhead with a 4-3 weapons layout, no hangar bays, and a secondary Lieutenant Commander Miracle Worker seat. Now, as many of you know, Miracle Worker is not that great of a specialization right now. It has 2 abilities that people use to boost weapon damage, Mixed Armament Synergy and Narrow Sensor Bands. In a commander seat like on the Terran Monitor, it at least is providing an extra universal console slot, which is significant for the science playstyle, as they tend to have lots of clicky consoles on there. But in a secondary non-commander seat, Miracle Worker doesn't provide that unless the devs break the rules like they did on the Federation Intel holoship. So without that extra console slot, Miracle Worker is just dead weight on a science ship unless you're focusing on weapon damage, and at that point, you're probably better off in a different ship. You would have hoped that they would have seen some of the feedback about Miracle Worker on the Proxima, but it seems not. The ship is still capable, of course, but there's really no reason to use this over the other science ships out there, and even if you want to fly a Nebula, you can just take the skin from this and apply it to the Terran Monitor, and you'll have a higher performance potential flying the existing, older Nebula variant. Now, it's not all doom for the Nebula here. The Starship trait on this is actually pretty damn crazy. This is Particle Fluctuation Analysis. Activating a universal console grants the following buffs to self and up to 4 nearby players for 10 seconds, stacks up to 10 times, and I assume new stacks refresh the duration of all existing stacks. Each stack of this trait provides 1% crit chance and healing crit chance, 10% crit severity and healing crit severity, plus 2 current and max aux power, and plus 15 to Starship Perception. At 10 stacks, that is an enormous buff, one of the largest crit buffs in the entire game, and it's doing it for both your damage output and also for healing. Now, the healing crit chance and severity stuff has been around for a while as part of the Miracle Worker Captain specialization. It just never got much attention as it was designed to work with the older Bridge Officer and Captain heals, which aren't often the main source of survivability on modern builds. Now, I don't recall how this crit chance and severity works with the consoles and traits that provide heals, but maybe that's something to take a look at with this trait buffing them out. Now, as impressive as these numbers are, it will be very difficult for most to effectively use it based on the numbers shown here. Even on a build designed to spam universal console clickies, it's going to be very difficult to constantly hit a console every 10 seconds. If you have a few teammates in the run also using the trait and spamming consoles, then it becomes a bit easier to max out and maintain, but realistically, that isn't going to happen in most random or public queues, especially given that this is coming from a bundle that's likely to cost over $100. So the more I think about this, the more I realize that as powerful as this trait is, with that 10-second timer, this isn't actually going to change much, if anything, for most players. You know, maybe I'm crazy, but this 10-second duration here, it's just too short and has to change. If this remains at 10 seconds, then this trait does not matter to all but a few people that do coordinated runs. So let me know your thoughts down below, but this needs to be bumped up to 15-20 seconds. Hitting a console every 10 seconds is just not reasonable, and expecting to be able to do that in anything other than a coordinated environment, that's also not a realistic expectation. And for the final ship here, this is the Romulan Legendary Dhelan Pilot Warbird. It's got a very unique visual appearance here. And I don't think the visual that they have here is properly doing it justice. I think when we can do some custom colors on it, some Vandy shields, I think there's going to be some really interesting combinations that people come up with for this ship. Stats-wise, the Dhelan has a 5-2 weapons layout with an experimental weapon slot. This has the railgun experimental weapon that we got with the Tier 6 Dhelan many years ago. Sadly, performance of that railgun is not very good. Then there's 2 device slots, console-wise 4-inch, 2 Psi, 5 TAC, and this should have a battle cloak, and being a Romulan ship, it does of course have the singularity mechanic. And for the Bridge Officer layout, this has a Commander TAC with Pilot, Lieutenant Commander Engineer with Intel, Lieutenant Commander Universal, Lieutenant TAC, and Ensign Universal. While this is a solid layout for range weapons, it is now the 9th ship with a Commander Pilot and secondary Intel specialization seat. This is a market that is saturated, and the only standout difference for the Dhelan is that the Intel being on Lieutenant Commander Engineer will prevent some of the inch seat from being deadweight like on some of the other options. Now, I really like having an Intel seat on my ships, but when we have 8 other ships already, 2 of which are also legendary ships, that basically do the exact same thing, it feels like it's a bit of a waste to not do a combination that would have been a bit more unique. So looking at the pilot ships here, Let's see, how many of them have Temporal as a secondary? One, and it's just a Lieutenant Temporal. So if they'd done Commander Pilot, Lieutenant Commander Temporal, that would have been a completely new combination, would have actually made this ship quite unique. But another option that they could have done here is Command. As many of you know, the Terran Eagle Pilot Raider is basically the top torpedo platform right now, because the console that comes with the Terran Eagle, the Covert Warhead Module, will allow your torpedoes to fire insanely fast on ships that have a commander pilot. So the issue with that then is that torps do really want to have a Lieutenant Commander Command. You want to have Commander Pilot, Lieutenant Commander Command. The only ship that meets that criteria is the Terran Eagle, which the Covert Warhead Module comes from. So going in and providing an alternative for people wanting to have a different platform to use that console on would have been really good. Or alternatively, going in and creating the first ship with a Commander Pilot and Lieutenant Commander Temporal, that would have given us something that doesn't already exist. It'd be something unique, may not necessarily be the best performer, but it would give people looking for that combination an option. And the Starship trait from the Dhelan is Parry and Thrust. Activating evasive maneuvers, brace for impact, or pilot maneuvers grants 5 stacks of Parry and Thrust. Each stack will provide plus 10% crit severity for range weapons for 10 seconds. And max spawns per second when hitting targets with directed energy weapons. Consume 1 stack to deal plasma damage to the target. I wouldn't use this on a non-pilot ship, and it doesn't stand out to me as being that impressive, but someone's certainly going to have some fun with this one. And to wrap things up, my first impression of the last stand bundle is honestly a bit mixed. The art team, of course, has done some amazing work here. I very much look forward to seeing the abominations people come up with all the Nebula kit bashing, and I look forward to seeing how the Dhelan looks with some alternate colors. But for the stats of the ship, they don't really change anything to me, and it feels like a missed opportunity to have done something new. The Negh'var is a direct 1-for-1 copy of the legendary Galaxy Dreadnought. That feels like a bit of a waste. And then for the Nebula, that joins the Lamar and Protostar with its subpar temporal Miracle Worker combo. It would have also been interesting to have seen a non-science Nebula at some point, and this would have been a good opportunity for that. At least for the Dhelan, it's slightly better than some of the other pilot intel ships. I'm just not sure that we needed a 9th pilot intel ship in the game. As for the traits, I was excited about them at first, but now that I've had some time to think about them, I'm not really sure they're going to have much impact. The Negh'var's Disruptor Damage Over Time trait has limited uptime, and the Nebula's trait will be too difficult for the majority of users to effectively use with the values shown today. Even a high-end crate build has 10-second gaps without console activations, which would result in losing the stacks of that trait. Now, I'll be getting hands-on with this bundle as soon as it goes live next week, and I'll be live testing it all out to see if my gut feeling is right or wrong about these accessories. And keep in mind that there is more to this bundle than what they revealed today. There's going to be more stuff that they reveal next week. And I'd be curious to hear what you all think about this bundle. Do you have the same concerns as I, or do you think I'm being a bit too negative about this? Let me know in the comments down below. And that is going to be it for today. As always, thank you to all channel members and viewers for the continued support. See you guys around.